Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome to the Shadowlands Alpha, first pass, first impressions, talking head summary of the Brewmaster monk. And with their last two monks, there are some baseline changes. There are some overall adjustments that have been had here. We have some notes to go through for sure. There are some big ones here. There are some pain points. There are some interesting decisions so far on Blizzard's part. But as of literally today, there was a blue post and changes in the most recent build to Balanced Druid Eclipse. So things are still moving and things are shaken. Not everything is set in stone here yet. And of course, if you want more of the analytical side of all of the back-end stuff, check the channel guide linked down below in the description box, where you will find all of the testing archives for every single spec we do, all the wrap-up videos, all of the dungeon runs. The dungeon run for this one actually has quite a bit of extra discussion after it, and some extra testing on the newest returning reworked guard mechanic, which I'm sure we'll get into very much in this video. However, on top of all this all happens over at my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/FinalBossTV. Also linked down below, or where any of the VOD links take you. So if you would like to be involved or be a part of the community talking points discussion and the chat room when this is all happening, then it's Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, thereabouts. I've had some different scheduled days based on working on my new audio setup, for example. But if you would like to join in the discussion, please feel free. Check the links down below. All relative socials are there, of course, but the big one where everything happens, where all the information gets smooshed together and figured out, over on my Twitch channel at FinalBossTV. So, today, Brewmaster Monk has... I'm going to run through like the quick stuff, the quick and dirty of the overall things that are also here or not here. For example, dual wielding is back for the Brewmaster. Dual wielding is back for the Brewmaster. It's not hooked up yet, so we really couldn't do any dual wield testing. Granted, the overall discussion about dual wielding as a tank just comes down to you get 2 weapon enchants, and your auto attacks are faster. But we don't know if they're going to change how auto attacks work or anything else. So I am not entirely sure how any of that will be changed over the course of this. What's also back, Touch of Death. Touch of Death for the Brewmaster. All monks have Touch of Death back. But the Brewmaster version here, the damage it deals, 200% of that will be reducing your stagger amount. But by default, they do a little bit different things across the board for interacting with the different monk specs. But the monk one, for the Touch of Death for Mistweaver monk, will generate some healing spheres. The one for Windwalker will generate chi spheres. And you see there the stagger interaction, which is leveled up later on. The ones I show off in the previous videos, Mistweaver and Windwalker videos, are already up. And then we'll do some overall discussion over some B-roll for the overall monk video that's coming out, depending on when you're watching this right now, the next day, tomorrow. But it deals 35% of your maximum health against players and stronger creatures that are under 15% HP. Or if it's like a minor mob, like you saw there with this poor turtle, it had less actual HP than me, and it just gets one banged. The weird thing about this one is that there's actually a back end part in the database that it classifies the stronger creatures as anything that's higher level than you. So on bosses, you're only going to use it like once, right? Same thing for DPS, same thing for healing. It does feel fun for overall questing. It is pretty neat in dungeons, because it does give you that extra bit of like, oh, the caster mob dipped below my HP pool. It's dead. It's more or less what it's there for. And the additional utility is still good, but that is what this is now going to be. It is no longer the Todd window with Gale Burst for Windwalker, which I went over quite a bit in that video. But being back for Mistweaver and Brewmaster is somewhat neat. Additionally, the hasted running provoke may be gone it is currently not in the game. If you watch here, it says movement speed, but that's a regular movement speed turtle swimming in the water, right? So something is still not there, which you may lose your hastened provoke taunt window, which, sure, I guess. But you saw also there, Clash is coming back. Clash, of course, will be your halfway charge both targets. That is coming back soon, as well as a Zen Meditation rank that allows you to Zen Med and move, which, of course, Zen Med's kind of strange because the next hit that hits you, like auto attack, breaks Zen Med. But say if you're not tanking currently, you're off tanking, you swap with your main tank, and then, of course, you have like a big dot on you, or there's a bunch of AoE damage going on, or as you will soon find out, currently magic damage is very scary for the Brewmaster. Very scary. The Zen Meditation would also help you in that regard because you'll be able to Zen Med and sit there and move while not taking melee hits and not doing any other action, of course, and be able to mitigate a lot of that magical damage. That may be a thing we'll see here soon enough. Additionally, you saw me expel harm there. This is sort of the old school version, I guess. The weird thing about this here is I'll go over the fact that we have expel harm back baseline and spinning crane kick baseline. All monks have spinning crane kick now. The weird part about this is that spinning crane kick has a built-in hidden rank 2 that moves your healing spheres that Gift of the Ox spawns to you. And that is not good. So hopefully that gets changed because you want to save up and use Expel Harm, which now can be used without the need of a healing sphere. It has a light heal. 10% of that heal, of course, goes to a nearby target. It's only one target gets hit by that. But this moth is, of course, not going to spark a healing sphere on me unless I'm at that moment. Where's it? Oh, never mind. It's going to evade. Never mind. See ya. But this draws in all positive chi from your healing spheres to increase the healing of Expel Harm, right? Each orb scales with the Gift of the Ox back end here. Right now it's 906. That's going to scale with your overall attack power and your versatility, things of that nature. And then, of course, when you pull those in, it may or may not interact with Celestial Fortune. I'll go over that more in a little bit. There's some weird things happening with that one still. If you're playing a Brewmaster, you know what I'm talking about. There's still some things. But yeah, so Spell Harm is back, baseline now, 15 energy. You have a little bit more time in the rotation, and with Spinning Crane Kick baseline, hopefully they remove the whole, it pulls your healing spheres towards you. It's really weird. You'll notice now that Rushing Jade Wind, which is still a talent, does not actually replace it. Let me put down my camp real quick here, so I have a rested area out here in the middle of nowhere. There's no tank dummies right now. If there are tank dummies, they're level 60 and they just wreck you. So Rushing Jade Wind is in addition to Spinning Crane Kick. So you get both. And right now, Rushing Jade Wind just does damage. And it's a rotational button because you have time in your rotation, which you still will. You still 100% will have time in the rotation. But while it has special delivery, I'll get to more in a little bit. But there is a pseudo-forced slowdown of the Brewmaster Monk, just ever so slightly. Blackout Kick, which is... That's weird. It's actually not duplicating in my spellbook. It was earlier today. It's a weird bug. You see it twice. But Blackout Kick now is not Blackout Strike. And that could be something that they bring back in because not being able to use your weapon again is super unfortunate because you just always kick. But Blackout Kick is a 4-second locked cooldown now. So it opens up a little bit of time in the rotation to obviously hit your Spinning Crane Kick. Or to, of course, cast Rushing Jade Wind if you have it talented. Or to cast your Chi Burst. So you're not as... Alright, see ya. That guy's very temperamental. You're not as locked into only hitting the same, like, 4 buttons in a row, right? Now, granted, if you're, using things like Blackout Combo, you're going to try to at least lock yourself somewhat, right? Because you're going to try to keep making use of the Blackout Combo Kick, which does slightly nerf Blackout Combo just a bit because 3-second cooldown on live versus 4-second cooldown here. But that also could be because they gave it to all monks and smoothed this out across the board and removed strike. But again, Alpha is alpha. Things are always moving and shaking around. So we'll see if that changes here soon. Other big ones, if you didn't see Spinning Crane Kick before, for the Mistweaver and the Windwalker, it is target capped. This is not target capped for a tank. So you're good to go there with spamming it. It also deals more damage than a Tiger Palm. And numbers being numbers, sure. Don't take that for all it's worth. Brew reduction is on Tiger Palm still, and Keg Smash, like it is currently. But weaving in Spinning Crane Kick, even on single target, is more damage with current numbers. So obviously Blackout combo giving it double damage, sure. But Tiger Palm still is just such rubbish in converting energy to damage for the Brewmaster. And that currently may not change because of its interaction with Brew cooldowns. But we'll see. You still have Fortifying Brew. Fortifying Brew is on all monks now, so it was added to Windwalker. And the Windwalker and Mistweaver versions are a little bit weaker. For you, it's still the same. It's still the 20% max in current health and the 10% increased stagger effectiveness and reducing all damage you take by 20%. So it's still the big boy version for Brewmaster, and of course still a brew, still gets cooldown reduction with the other brews. It does work out to be roughly a 4-ish minute cooldown, similar to things like Shield Wall and such, whereas the 2-minute version, the weaker version for your other two specs, is to balance that out because they also have that in addition to their other tools, healing themselves or things like Touch of Karma, etc. And let's see. I wonder about how Clash is going to work with mobs that can't be moved. We'll see how that works. It'll probably be a blacklist, whitelist kind of a situation with like Death Grip. You can't pull bosses. So Clash will make you charge the boss, but you won't move the boss. We'll see about that, of course. And you did see that right. You're looking in the talents here. Exploding Keg is back. However, this version of Exploding Keg, sadly, is not the awesome-looking animated version from Legion. Hopefully this changes. It's just a Keg Smash. It literally is the same exact thing as a Keg Smash. So hopefully the big, like, explosion of fire comes back in. But in Exploding Keg's place, Angry Dave. That's Dave. Where's Angry Dave? Angry Dave. Angry Dave is actually really cool. So you have a baseline cooldown now. That's so huge for Brewmaster. Because you never had one before, right? You always had the rotational little bits and pieces there and there, and you could spec into this. But all it does now, let me grab the tooltip to read it specifically, because it's not great. 3-minute cooldown. Summons an effigy of Nizao, the Black Ox, for 45 seconds. You will notice here that it only comes. This is only for 25 seconds now, but obviously there's more going on there. So on live, it summons for 45 seconds. All Nizao does will attack your primary target and taunts it. He also frequently stomps, damaging nearby enemies. Cool. Great. Now, on a 25-second duration, 3-minute cooldown, it'll attack your primary target, frequently stomp, damaging all nearby enemies for a base amount, attack power based, plus 25% of the stagger damage recently purified. This is not hooked up yet, so we don't know if it's based on how much stagger you purify, if you're in green or yellow or red, or if it's literally the actual numerical amount and then adds that numerical amount to his damage, or there's some percentage ratio there. So now when you summon Angry Dave, which, if you don't know, he's just called that. It's some long-standing joke in the Peak of Serenity Discord and the Monk Theory Crafters, which is a sidebar here, middle of the video or so. In the description box down below, there is a giant post, a couple posts from monks that are way more understanding of all this stuff than me. There is some more information that is out there, more thoughts and feedback. Emelson and Peo put out some great information there, so that's linked down below as well in the description box if you want some more detailed write-up of some other thoughts. But to go back on to Angry Dave, it synergizes well, or it synergizes and syncs up with you removing stagger and it dealing more damage while it's active, so it's a DPS cooldown, as well as, while active, 25% of damage delayed by stagger, your stagger, will instead go to Nizao. We're going to pull this very angry elite over here, and we are going to pop Angry Dave. Even though I don't know if I can even solo this guy, but we're going to find out. Get in here, Dave. I can show off the expel harm stuff too. You'll see him taking damage right now because he is taking damage from my stagger. And of course, the damage that he should be doing should be higher, but he's currently not doing additional damage because that is not hooked up yet. We tried to see if it would work, but it was not. It was not hooked up. So now you have, it's a set and forget in a way, and I understand that, but it still is an additional rotational button that works with how the Brewmaster even plays. You're seeing special delivery fire off here. Of course, I went back and talented to that, right? No, we're exploding kegs still. So let me throw that out here. Blam. Still has the misses melee attacks. See their miss right there. Of course, it might be cannibalized because of your actual mastery. You could dodge attacks instead. Bam. I'm using healing elixir right now as well. And here's the big one. Let's stack this up a couple of times. I'm naked. There it is. We'll now talk about it. Celestial Brew, aka Guard 3.0, is back and currently seems incredibly busted. But we'll talk about it. I did it. All right. A couple things going on here. This is going to be your core of the class. And I preface this by saying, open your mind a little bit to what you've known about Legion and Battle for Azeroth Brewmaster tanking, where obviously Stagger is a huge part of this. To first talk about this, Iron Skin Brew is gone. Gone. All you have is Purifying Brew. It's a 15-second base recharge, where it clears 50% of the damage delayed with Stagger. Stagger, for those that may not only play Brewmaster Monk, ticks every 0.5 seconds for, if you get hit once, it's 10 seconds long, which is how Bob and Weave adds 3 seconds to that Stagger delay, adding 6 more ticks, or delaying damage through 6 more ticks of Stagger. And of course, if you don't know, Stagger will never actually kill the Brewmaster Monk. If you have 1 health and 1,000,000 Stagger, you will not die. Everything else will kill you, of course, because you're at 1 health. But this is a big one, is that you only purify now. And you, of course, only can purify when you have damage in the Stagger pool. And I was using healing elixirs today because I felt that it actually was... Now, Dampen Harm, of course, might come in here. Bob and Weave smooths out more of this, so tank agency. This is the big thing that I was talking about today on stream. I think Blizzard is trying to bring back a little bit, just a little bit, to push that needle back towards tanks to have just a touch more actual control over their damage. And obviously, if you're a tank, your job is to smooth incoming damage and not die 4-head, or in my case, 5-head. So Celestial Brew, aka not Guard, but it's a brew, so it does interact with brew reducing cooldowns and anything that reduces brews, like light brewing, for example, or Black Ox Brew, which is kind of a trap. But Celestial Brew has a base amount of Absorb, and its Stagger, it purifying Stagger gives you a stack of Purified Chi. Let me refer to my notes real quick here. So Purified Chi is a 1, 2, and 3 based system. If you're in green Stagger and you purify and brew, you'll get 1 stack. If you're in medium yellow Stagger, you'll get 2. If you're in red high Stagger, you'll get 3. Each stack is 40% more into Celestial Brew. Right now, it is very possible to get like 4 times your health if you have 10 stacks. It's actually just totally busted. And this happens very quickly. Now, to get a full 10 stacks, that takes some time. But getting a 2, 3, 4, 2 is easy. 3, sure. 4, 5 stack is definitely possible because you're purifying so much more often. On live right now, and again, more information about this in the Peak of Serenity post. On live right now, you're purifying every like 20 to 24 seconds or so based on what Brewmaster's doing, because Brewmasters have to choose Iron Skin uptime versus Purify. That was the change in BFA. But Stagger itself, which has been changed a little bit in the back end, the K value is different. If you really want all the crazy Stagger math, I also am leaving a giant paste bin from the theory crafting community, from the Brewmaster community, with all this math. If you want to look at it, is there. But Shuffle now is Ironskin Brew. It is baked in to Keg Smash, Blackout Kick, and Spinning Crane Kick. Each gives you a different duration amount of increased Stagger effectiveness. And it's very simple. You look on your character panel, you see my Stagger amount at 34%. If I cast Keg Smash, Shuffle goes up. If I cast this, there we go. It stacks to 15 seconds. So you will be permanently in the Stagger window, staggering this much damage. More damage goes into the Stagger window compared to live in a way. There's a diminishing return cooldown on it. Basically, what the more you have to stagger in the percentage, the harder or more you need in agility, because it's based on your agility to actually raise the amount. So getting to like 60 to 70 plus is fine. Trying to get to 80 to 85 plus is way harder. It's just diminishing returns on how much stagger you can actually get. And as you see here, Stagger does not do it anymore. Doesn't do it anymore. Doesn't stagger magic damage. No magic damage. There is, however, a Stagger rank 2, which may be a leveling up upgrade or something they're working on, or they made it decoupled, they in this case being Blizzard, where there is the 35% stagger efficiency towards magic damage passive, but that is not hooked up anymore, or it's been forcibly decoupled. Very good against physical damage. Shuffle, putting a lot of things into Stagger, purifying Brew all the time, basically, because the cooldown is very, very short. It's roughly between every 6 to 12 seconds right now, compared to live, where you've got 20 plus seconds between purifies. And that gives you purifying chi to give you bigger celestial brew windows, which, to go back on the initial point, I want to talk about healing elixir in the dungeon. And if you watch the actual VOD, the follow-up video to this one's going to have it as B-roll, but if you want the actual VOD and the banter and the discussion, I find it very fun, which I said like 90 times on stream, the tank agency feeling of, and I probably did it against this big boy, is having, let's pull him again, is having a bunch of damage intake. Let's just aggressively cast just to get some stacks here. If you are tanking, like you do, and you are in charge of smoothing out the damage incoming to your face. And right now, a lot of BFA is there's some procs and some RNG to it and things of that nature, but you should be in charge of when you take damage or how you deal with that damage. Now, for example, say big tank mechanic comes in, you got a taunt swap in, right? And you've been building up. Because if you take random damage, of course, you probably got to have some stagger stacks. It'll be different when you actually taunt swap in, because you can't purify chi unless you purify stagger. But you taunt swap in, but you're low health from whatever reason, or you have to leave. You can get these huge windows where you're protected, and then you can follow up with a healing brew, rather healing elixir, and then an expel harm. And I think there's something to be said about that. I don't fight you anymore. There's something to be said about, I think Blizzard is trying to bring back and add in a little bit more of the tank doesn't need to be permanently, constantly healed by the beaconing Holy Paladin, right, to survive. And if A, magic damage is terrifying currently for the Brewmaster Monk, then B, you need to pay attention to your Celestial Brew windows, how many times you're purifying, how often you're purifying, keeping your physical damage under control so that your HP isn't dipping from that physical damage so that you can actually Celestial Brew magic damage or big hits or yada yada. Or, you know, someone is out to take some of your stagger away, or any other tool you have. Refreshing with Black Ox Brew is a trap, because if you actually Celestial Brew and then refresh with the Ox Brew, it resets your Celestial Brew. So if you don't have stacks of purified chi, it goes to its default duration. Now, of course, you can chain it into a big one and then refresh into a small one, sure. But it all comes down to how fast you can purify. And that's the biggest feedback point that I have here to sort of end on, is that it's very possible that purifying is happening too often compared to live, or Celestial Brew's cooldown, because it's also a brew and can be reduced by brew affecting abilities. Also, light brewing, for example, just cuts off 6 seconds. Could be happening too often. And that is a balancing point to make sure that you're not just continuously purifying with higher haste, because it cools down with haste as well, and light brewing. And there's always just spamming Celestial Brew and taking like no damage. Because we'll go back to Warlord's Brewmaster, where they just ignored tank mechanics, and you could do like, I think back to, what was it, Blackrock Foundry and the boat phase with the Blackrock Orc triplicates thing, the council fight, where you could solo the boat as a Brewmaster because you never needed a heal because you just spammed guard. But between that, Exploding Keg coming back, potentially opening up the rotation a little bit, you have a new talent down here called Celestial Flame, which is super scuffed right now. It's neat. It's a proc you react to, but it's a brew-based proc, so it probably should be up here. Spitfire outside of PvP without having Incendiary Breath is pretty meh. The Hop Trub passive here is basically what's caked into Nizao baseline now, which is pretty cool. Eye of the Tiger is a pain point because it's just easy but passive, but also really weak, but you can't cross-thought with it, so whatever. There's a couple of things here that are still like, I don't know. And then High Tolerance is really good, but you want to usually have, you know, medium-ish stagger, so you don't want to actually purify that often. But if you don't purify that often, you can't really Celestial Brew for a lot. But maybe High Tolerance isn't meant for that. It's meant for, you know, very physical forward bosses. But if the Brewmaster is supposed to be this very physical, anti-physical tank and magic damage is scary, then other tanks, like, say, not necessarily the DK, it's a bit of a misnomer. They're not amazing against magic damage either. That's more of the Vengeance Demon Hunter territory, even the freaking, well, Paladin's flat DRs, and they have huge self-heals, but maybe even the Guardian Druid, because they have so much HP, and they heal based off their flat HP, and their HP is now even better with things like Incarnation and stuff, so maybe they're the magic tank, and they just, I don't know. Overall as well, HP-wise, in the dungeon you'll see, toward the end of it, I was with Kib in the dungeon, and Word Up, we're all palling around, having a good time, but overall HP values of the Brewmaster, because of Stagger, looks to be somewhat being fought against a little more. Brewmasters have historically less HP than other tanks, but I think I had almost 7,000 less health than Kib when he swapped over to Vengeance. So it was a pretty big difference. And that could be because of A, Stagger, B, purifying more aggressively, and C, Celestial Brew being a huge part of how you don't take damage or how you brunt that damage incoming to your Brewmaster face. But that's that. The other thing I guess I could end on too, Celestial Fortune still has the hidden passive where whatever percentage your critical strike chance is, that increases, absorbs on you. So that also increases Celestial Brew. But this is also bugged where it was always using my crit value even when I didn't have the crit on my character, or I lowered my crit in certain ways by taking gear off. Something was not right here. So maybe Celestial Brew won't work with Celestial Fortune, but obviously it probably should, but something is not working correctly there. And the tooltip doesn't even tell you what it's doing, that it even does that. But that's for another day. Elusive Brawler, your mastery is still the same. Still the dodge, rotational stuff, and the attack power, which the attack power, of course, buffs Celestial Brew. But good baseline adjustments, some broad strokes here, but that is currently what the Brewmaster is looking like. Let me know down below what you think is going to happen here for the Brewmaster, because there's definitely going to be some changes and some things are being adjusted. But thank you very much for listening. Check out the channel guide if you want all of the testing VOD footage, the dungeon footage, for example, or if you would like to stop by my Twitch stream where everything happens. Twitch.tv/FinalBossTV. So you'll find me. Links are all down below in the description box. Got the Monk wrap-up video coming up next, as well as the Blood Death Knight into the DPS DKs next week. Thank you all for listening. See you all in the next video.